My dad takes story time very seriously. Final part. Something in my gut knew that closing my eyes wasn't the answer. I was covered by the strangers, but still, I somehow looked ahead. Somehow, they were a blur. I couldn't look away from them, but my attention wasn't with them. It was with the story. But eventually, they all went home, and Patrick Bear found peace and quiet once again. I said. A breeze blew through the window. The room was suddenly still. The house was empty. Everyone was gone. There was no sign of anything. No family photos. No children's books. Nothing I recognized. Just generic furniture. When the cops found me days later, starved and confused, the story was that I was an orphaned boy with no traceable lineage. Everything I told them about my dad, my upbringing, story time, and more couldn't be proven in any way. I talked about my school, about the teachers and friends I had there, but no one mentioned could recall ever knowing me. For a while, I was convinced that I'd made up the whole thing in my mind, that I'd been abandoned by my parents when I was young, fled from an orphanage, and squatted in uninhabited properties living an imagined life. A storybook of my own. The events of that final night of story time and the insanity I encountered were proof that I'd merely decoupled from reality as a child. Unfortunately, like the werewolf, I learned a painful lesson when my wife, Meredith, died while giving birth to our son Michael. Through the sheer shock and horror of it all, I tried to convince myself that it was just a disturbing cosmic coincidence. But then a package from nowhere arrived at my front door, a few weeks after her passing. It was a fully illustrated storybook. It was called Michael Bear and the Uninvited Guests. On the first page, in the inner lining of the book, there was a note scribbled in it. It read, "We can't wait for the party. We'll bring all our friends. Love, Meredith, Mom and Dad. I can't say for certain when the party will be, but if history is anything to go on, the uninvited guests will show up around my son's 10th birthday. And so, to prepare, we do story time every night. After all, it's important. It's special. It can't be skipped. It's a ritual, an event. And every time he complains about it, I give him the reminder. What would the uninvited guests think about this?"